It's time to get you caught up with all things sports.
Yes! 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 Yes!
On the throw-in.
One thing is certain. None of this is possible without you, the listeners.
From baseball, football, wrestling, and more, covering local Cincinnati sports, stories, news, and highlights.
Why is he always calling me meat?
With your host, Justin Trento.
When this all said and done, we're going to look back and remember this is what started it all.
Available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Let's play the ball! Let's play the ball!
Well, a very, very happy Monday to everyone, and welcome to the throw-in here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. My name is Justin. Today is Monday, June the 12th of 2023, and it seems like the last couple of weeks it's been a trend, one thing after the other, trying to get back up on rolling. But I have confidence in myself today and this week because we got to get back into it. Got a lot of things to talk about, and I'm excited. So grab your popcorns, grab your drinks, hit that like button, and we'll be giving you the next 2 hours. Well, hey, you know what I'm going to tell you? We got a bunch of things to talk about today. Cincinnati begins a 3-game series in Kansas City. We'll talk about the NBA Finals, Game 5 between Miami and Denver, and what Miami has to do to win Game 5 and keep the series, the game streak alive. And then we'll talk the Bengals. Those Bengals, they're kicking off minicamp today. So we'll talk about that. And the turmoil just keeps on grinding. But realistically, is Paul Heyman the one to blame with the Bloodline's issues and concerns and turmoil that is presented? Is it Paul Heyman, or is it is it the Bloodline? So we'll talk about that. But first off, we have to address a pretty big incident that took place last week. It's been a while since we've done this on our program, but we do want to honor the late and great Iron Sheik, WWE Hall of Famer, one of the greatest villains back in the the last generation of talent. So we will give out our 10 bell salute given to the Iron Sheik in remembrance. This one was a bit difficult to swallow when discovering the news last week. Now, I didn't quite get the honor and privilege to actually watch him wrestle. I remember hearing stories about him. The times that I did get a chance to see the Iron Sheik compete, it was off of recordings and stuff like that. But every decade there's a handful of talent that realistically gives you how do you want to put this? Every decade there's a handful of talent that are the pillars and the stepping stones of professional wrestling. and it's both, baby faces and heels that put wrestling on the map in that generation. And when you talk about a athlete and a man called the Iron Sheik, you mentioned, he's one of those pillars. He's one of those Mount Rushmore guys of not one, but several decades in life, that left a stamp and marking that changed the image of professional wrestling itself. And so losing the Iron Sheik, and, we've lost great ones in the past. Roddy Piper, Dusty Rhodes, and the curtain's going to be calling, at some point in life with Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. But those for many, okay, were including the Iron Sheik, Andre the Giant, Sergeant Slaughter. These are men who defined wrestling in I call the golden era of professional wrestling, when wrestling was trying to become more than a circus act. Okay. And they were building, it was growing. And the Iron Sheik played a huge part of its success. And the one thing that I would, also say to him is that he was one of the greatest, when you have to, if you had to create a Mount Rushmore, a lot of people ask, hey, create a Mount Rushmore and let's actually give you, the top 4 or 5 guys that, that really, is your Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling. Well, when you start breaking down those categories and you throw out a category like your heels, right? The Iron Sheik is one of them that is added on. You have to kind of add on the Iron Sheik to a Mount Rushmore of at least one of the greatest heels of all time. This was also a time for me understanding Iron Sheik's career. He didn't just wrestle for the success of himself. He also wrestled for the success of his country, or representing Iran, right? And you have the weight, the world is setting on your shoulders because there's so much political standpoints in different countries, right? And you have to come in and act like you're perfectly, you have to work 10 times harder, I feel, if you're coming from another country into the United States, to be just that much better. And the Iron Sheik did that tenfold. He set that example, that, all of it. It's incredible for, like I said, the landings of what he did in his life and what he left behind for others to nourish and to take it and grasp it. I mean, some of his greatest feuds, he also gave us, country battles, Iran versus U.S., Sergeant Slaughter versus, the Iron Sheik, and so much more. So he was, although I did not get the honor and privilege growing up watching him compete night in, night out, he left a huge stamp in the wrestling world, and he would truly be missed. So on behalf of me and the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, we give our condolences out to the friends and the family of the Iron Sheik, who passed away last week. Definitely had to get that out there and talk about that for a moment. But man, tough. All right, let's get things rolling here on a Monday afternoon. It is a evening time, which means Monday Night Raw is going up, and we will be talking about Monday Night Raw as they just revealed Rhea Ripley's new, I believe it's a women's world heavyweight championship or something like that. So now you have both the men's and the women's titles have officially changed its image. looks very identical to, the World Heavyweight Championship, and so is Asuka's looking, to the WWE Championship. But we'll talk about that on a later date. I gotta ask, thoughts of SmackDown. For me, this was, hey, we're on the road to Money in the Bank, which is July 1st. I thought it was sooner, but it was July 1st. I got my dates wrong. But Money in the Bank, you have the men's and women's ladder matches, and we're starting to see the biggest thing that came out of SmackDown this past Friday night had to be the turmoil that continues to grow among the Bloodline. There we go. It has to be the turmoil that continues to grow among the Bloodline. I apologize for that sensational error to begin things off. And it seems to be one after the other. We talked about this before, and one of my biggest things, and I think they're doing it quite well, is slowly telling the story. There's so much story yet to be told in the Bloodline that that if you tell it properly, this could last you another year, another 2 years, and so be it. I'm fine with it as long as the story is still going. Some people may feel, okay, it should wrap up, whatever the case may be, but I really like it. But now they're telling this story where the Usos are at odds, and now you have a triangle, feud among the three brothers, Jimmy, Jay, Solo, and now Solo is still dedicated to be on Roman's side, and I think now it's coming down to the Usos, and we have to. It was first one Uso at the beginning of the year. Now this back half is going to be the other Uso, and it's going to take a while before they finally see it. And my biggest thing is after watching SmackDown last Friday, I was thinking to myself, Paul Heyman, it works so mischievously, and I apologize for butchering that word. He works so, he's very manipulative. He's very persuasive. He's very controlling. And I feel like, the question is, realistically, is Paul Heyman the problem for the Bloodline? I mean, he's the right-hand man of the tribal chief. And I listen, for a million years, you would have told me, hey, Roman Reigns was going to be with Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman was going to be his advocate. I say, no way. But it turned out to be better, better for business, better for the storyline, and it works extremely well. I've come to learn it, love it, live it. And for some reason, my camera keeps on busting out, so we'll do this here for a moment. But so but the question I think you have to ask yourself is that he's not really working well amongst Solo. Solo, he doesn't quite speak right now, right? So he's up in the air. Solo Sikoa, he sits there and says, because he doesn't speak, he just does, he listens and he does things based off of what people tell him. So he's very controlling, which is a good, time, but we'll only see how long that would work. But overall, right? Let me try to get this camera back set up for some reason. It keeps cutting in and out. But for overall, Paul Heyman has been working himself over the last several weeks to kind of pick and poke and, put the thorn in the bloodline a little bit here and there, saying one Uso is going to, planning on being the blood, being part of the new tribal chief and vice versa. And I think he's doing it so well. I'm surprised he hasn't gotten caught yet. And I think it's a legitimate question. It's a legitimate concern. And I feel that that we, at some point you understand, you think about this, you and everything that's happened, especially since they lost the titles, Paul Heyman speaks on behalf of Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns has this undivided contract that gives him the ability to show up, every twice a month, wrestle every other premium live event that's given, defend his title maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Well, other than that, Paul Heyman is his advocate, speaks on behalf of, Roman Reigns, delivers messages, and I'm sure along the line, some of those messages gets tweaked, gets, mixed up, it gets interpreted a different way. And then, I'm also sure, hey, listen, Paul Heyman doesn't recite word for word that Roman says. So he's kind of throwing in some of his own words. And this is where he's trying, and right now it seems like, he wants to see them tear each other apart. It's, you go against us and let's tear each other apart. But, Paul Heyman played a huge contribution on Friday night that would steer the Usos apart more and more and more. And I think the ultimate, and this is where problems run into the family. First of all, Paul Heyman is not family. Paul Heyman is the opposite of family. Okay. He's just an advocate. And, when you really think about what family does for family, you don't let an outside person come in and tell you what to do, how to do things, or where your mind should be. And that's where Paul Heyman is at. So, I like that we have taken the step back from Roman Reigns being the forefront, the number one image. You're letting the Usos and you're letting the Solo Sikoa start with their story, let them figure things out for a bit. But then you still keep every once in a while, you tying the knots with Roman Reigns back into it. Like I said, this bloodline story, on just as much as it took, and the excitement that it took with the uphill battle, there is still so much to tell on the downhill battle. And, so far they're telling it pretty damn well. So, all right. Hey, listen, I want to thank everyone who is tuning us in on our YouTube page. Be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Don't forget to have those notifications on so you don't miss a single episode. I got a great 2-hour program for you guys this afternoon, kicking things off on a Monday. If you guys are watching us on our Facebook or Twitter page, be sure to like that, but hit that like button and share it with a friend. Get involved in our comments. Get involved into the chats. I want to hear your voice, you guys, and much more. If you guys are downloading us, taking us on the road, on our audio platforms, we thank you and welcome to the show. All right, just getting underway on a Monday. Let's come on back and let's talk some Reds baseball. Man, there's something to be excited about. You guys are listening to The Throw-In here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Looking back at the good times before it all went down, climbed right up on the hillside, a different view of my life. You left me running on and on, but I don't care, would you let me ugly. Yeah. Oh, what a hopeless place that we're in. But I'm your liability.
Alrighty, 8:22 here on a Monday afternoon. I want to give a big shout out to our friends at StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Create your podcast videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. All that with the click of a button, thanks to StreamYard Studios. Check out their free version today. Head out to StreamYard.com for more information. Alrighty, the Cincinnati Reds get ready to take on the Kansas City Royals. Game 1 of a 3-game series just about to get underway. We'll tell you all about that right after this. Alrighty, well, it is a fun time if you are, sorry, we're micro, I guess cameras are still causing issues. Let me double check. All right, microphone's still good. Gotta be very sensitive to the cameras. Let me try to fix it real quick. Oh, all right, audio still working? All right. Hopefully, let me get that back up and running. All right, let's get that back up and running. All right, let's try that. We will see how that works. No, it doesn't work. It's a connectivity, I believe. All right. We will look into that. Hopefully it doesn't cause too much more problems tonight on this episode. Man, glitches out. All right, hold on 1 second. Let's try this again. All right, we're gonna try this, see how this works, and hopefully it works well. Well, all right. So it has been a fun time if you are a Cincinnati Reds fan, and I have to be honest, it has been fun for me the last few weeks. You know, last week we mourn over the passing of the Iron Sheik in the WWE. But not everything last week came out of, you know, being sad, because there were surely some great highlights out of last week. And let's talk about the debut of the number 1 prospect in our eyes, in our opinions, that really kind of lit a vibe for the Reds, and that's Elly De La Cruz. Elly De La Cruz comes up to the Dodgers series last Monday, made his debut, and you know, listen, and I don't know, maybe you got more Dodger fans going out to the stadium on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but it was crowded. And you could feel, you know, the Reds players have been, you know, you could see it in their faces. You can see it, you know, you could, you know, feel it coming from the locker room from day 1 of the season. They knew there was going to be a process. They knew that throughout the course of this year, we were going to see several prospects get called up. I'm talking about Mac McClain, Ben Lively, Andrew Abbott, Brandon Williamson, and then Elly De La Cruz. And there's still a bunch of great talent down in the minors that has yet to make their appearances yet. And this is all part of that process of this new generation for the Reds that we hope to see in the next 2 to 3 years that can make it to, that can lead this team to a NLC championship and even further beyond that. I was looking at a statistic the other day over the weekend, and the last time the Cincinnati Reds have won a postseason game was dated back to 2012. All right, 2 other teams were below that. One would be, I believe, the San Francisco Giants, and 2, the Minnesota Twins. So first of all, there is a 10-year gap since they last won a postseason game. And it tells you something. So, like I said, you felt the vibe, and you could drive by the Great American Ballpark. You could just feel the energy. And it's almost as if the, fans, all right, which is a huge part of the success that the Reds are having this year, is getting the fans involved. We talked about this at the beginning of the season. We're like, hey, listen, all right, we need to find ways to come out here and to give the fans a reason to come out to the games. And a lot of us was saying that, all right, it's going to take the prospects coming up through the, farm system and making their way on the big league roster, the reasoning why this team was going to be so successful. And I think we're finally seeing that. We're coming into tonight's game. All right, it's beginning game 1 of a 3-game series against the Kansas City Royals. We were sending Luke Reaver out there. He was 1-2 with a 6.27 ERA. Then we got Zach Greinke, who is 1-6. The Royals are coming into tonight's ball game, coming into this series 18-47. The Reds, on the other hand, 31-35, 4 games away from 500. All right, they are officially, and we'll get into this later in the bottom of the hour, they are 4 games back of first place in the Central of those Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, if the record isn't enough, because let's face it, I don't think even the fans did not expect, even analytics, I don't even think the Reds expected that this team can be in 3rd place in the middle of June. Nonetheless, only 4 games back, 3 big games behind in the wild card. And you kind of force your management, force David Bell, force Nick Kroll to make some really tough decisions as we get closer to the All-Star break, as we get closer to the trade deadline and all that fun stuff. I will say this, though, all right, is that no, we're not picking up every win, and we're not expected to win. And there's that that old sports saying. I think it goes for all games. Every team, every sport, is that you should be winning the games that are presented to you, or that you should, you're expected to win. In this case, we're expected to beat the Royals, right? They're 18-47. All right, their week series here. It's a 3-game series that concludes on Wednesday. Game 1's tonight. Zach Greinke's on the mound. Game 2, Brandon Williamson will go up against Jordan Lyles, and Jordan Lyles is 0-10 on the season. And then to finish things off, you got Daniel Lynch, who's 0-2 with the 4.41 ERA on Wednesday night. Okay, you just got done beating the Dodgers at home in a 2 out of 3 series. You went to St. Louis at Busch Stadium and took the Cardinals 2 out of 3 game series. There's no reason why you shouldn't be coming out, to Kansas City at Kauffman Stadium and not taking at least 2 out of 3. So we get to see Elly De La Cruz, and it's been exciting to see Elly De La Cruz. He's been on fire. One of my biggest fears, right, is that you could have so much success, unlimited success, in the minor leagues. You could hit, you could go 45 for 40. You go 45-45, right? 45 home runs, 45 stolen bases, something like that. Okay, and then you get it called up to the big leagues, and it's not what you expect to see, right? Over the weekend, okay, some facts for you guys here. Over the weekend, Matt McClain on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, he had a total of, he was 3 for 14. Okay. And for those who haven't, let me do some math for you here real quick, but I did not get a chance to do it before the show. So 3 divided by 14, that is a 214 average. Okay, so not the greatest, I admit that. But he's had a hit in every ball game. He's had a run in the first 2 ball games against the Cardinals. He's walked once. He walked once, and he only struck out 3 times. Ellie De La Cruz, Cardinals series. He was 1 for 4 on Friday. He was 1 for 4 on Saturday, and he was 2 for 3. So that is 4 divided by, to get the batting average just for the last weekend series, 3, 9, 12. Okay, he was batting .333. All right, with a total of 4 runs scored over the weekend, because he scored in each game. He also had a total of 2 RBIs, and then he had 3 walks from what I have. Now, when you could have the young talent thrive off of each other, then I think that's something that, you're setting the expectations. I mean, you're having this great series, and this is the reason why we could get behind the Reds. And I saw it at the stadium last week. I've been seeing it, Milwaukee, and then the Dodgers are like, oh no, this is going to be terrible. We didn't do too bad. We're playing 500 baseball as of the last 10 games. Let me kind of get into the swing of things here. Let me get to the schedule. So we dropped this. We dropped the series against. We took 1, so we avoided a 4-game sweep from Milwaukee, and then we took 2 of 3 against the Dodgers. Took 2 of 3 against St. Louis over the weekend, and then we have the road against Kansas City, and then this coming up weekend will be in Houston. And so to be able to win ball games, especially teams that you don't expect to win, like the Cardinals, the Dodgers, so forth, to be able to, it's a first step as we make our way towards, throughout the course of the season. And we have to give our, thoughts and suggestions, like, this is the new image. What's also so great about it is that earlier this year we signed Hunter Green to a long-term extension to kind of keep him in the ball club for the next 5-6 years, right? And what's so great about everything that we've seen, all right, because he's been banged up. Guys that we were beginning of the season, right? Hunter Green could go every, I'm solid with Hunter Green every 5 days. I'm solid with Nick Lodolo every 5 days. I'm solid with Graham Ashcraft every 5 days. They're kind of getting banged up. So now we're calling back on our minor league pitchers that were expected to come up. Guys like Williamson, Levy, Abbott, and they're holding themselves pretty well. So we're quickly seeing the process of this Reds team get built up, and you got to be excited. If you haven't found the reason to go to a game, it's not about Jonathan India anymore. It's not about Tyler Stevenson anymore. It's not about Joey Votto. It's not about Hunter Green. It's about these younger guys coming up because they have so much energy, and you could feel it. You could feel it with the ball club. You could feel it with the just driving by Great American Ballpark. You could feel the energy. You could feel that, hey, from day one, they have proven to us that this was going to be an every, we're going to fight to the very last out of each and every game, win or lose. And they've had scenarios where, yes, they've lost, but they have made it very interesting to the very last pitch. All right. It was bases, bottom of the 9th inning, down by a run, bases loaded, 2 outs, 3-2 count, the last pitch. And I'm like, I'll take that for a win. There's going to be parts of this season where, we know that there's little to no expectation out of this Reds ball club this year. but we got to find ways. And the Reds, we had to establish was to find ways to get fans back in the crowd. You should be able to go to the game, win or lose, rain or shine, and be able to go to Great American Ballpark to watch the Reds play because you want to watch the players on the field, regardless if they're good or not. That's how the Yankees, that's how New York is so successful. That's how the Dodgers are so successful. Right now, that's how the Padres are so successful. And I'm sorry, I keep on relating our team to the San Diego Padres, but guess what? They're not doing so well, and yet they're a team that have expectations of winning the World Series this year. And when we could play the same baseball as them and have the same result as them there's a huge gap between the players that they have and the players that we have, then we're doing something right. We are doing something right. By the way, they come down in 2 weeks. So, we didn't do so well when we went to San Diego. Hopefully we could come back and do so well when we get to when they come into town. All right, let's take a look at the National League Central because that standing is pretty interesting. We'll talk about the All-Star ballot as it is officially open until June 22nd, which is in about 10 days. Vote now. We'll tell you all about that heading to the bottom of the hour. You guys are listening to The Throne here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Inside your bedroom, we stopped counting the days, lost in the rhythm. Physical silence, no need to speak a word, laying here beside me. The one I lived to find.
Well, we got Monday Night Raw going on. Reds Royals just got underway. Royals up front 2-0. NBA Finals Game 5 headed up a little later on tonight. Actually, probably I just think it got underway just now. We're just enjoying our Monday afternoon. Got the AC off. Been able to have it off throughout the weekend. Youngest got her tonsils removed on Wednesday last week. Ended up picking up a little virus, bug over the weekend. Things actually went smoother than expected. Just been busy with life. Summertime is here. Got a chance to turn off the AC, had the AC running. So kind of all that fun and good stuff. Just that, that life brings, to be honest. You're happy before it, but it brings so much in this world that sometimes you don't know what to do with it. But you know what? That's why we have sports to rely and to sit back and watch and enjoy. And that's what we're doing here on this Monday. We're talking U Sports. Coming up here is the National League Central standings, as it really has changed on a week-by-week basis. And, one thing that I really talk about here on this standings as we look. Pittsburgh currently has a game above Milwaukee. And they've been playing, they've been up and down. They've been playing 7-3 over the last 10 games. Cincinnati right there in the middle. And I feel like Cincinnati has a good, you never want to get down and in a bad streak. You always want to stay positive, playing about 500 baseball or better at least throughout a season. Like I said, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But, I feel like the Reds have finally gotten themselves into a nice groove. They're only 4 games back of 500 baseball. They're 4 games back of first place. And they're also comfortable at the bottom end too, where they're separated by 2.5 games from the Cubs, and St. Louis is 8 games back of Pittsburgh. That's another 4 games back. So, I mean, they're solid right now into first place, but this NL Central team, standings have really been complexed, and it's, in a sense, it's one of those, okay, great. Makes you almost believe, does the Reds have the opportunity to contend at the end of August, September? I mean, I know I'm quite jumping the gun, and no one is really sitting here expecting, the Reds to, be this good as of right now. No one ever expected, Cincinnati to be this good in June. No one expected I think the only thing I think people could expect was the division not being so great. But no one expected Cincinnati playing 500 baseball in June. No one expected the Pittsburgh Pirates to have, to be leading in the middle of June. No one expected the St. Louis Cardinals to be dead last, 8 games back. And, things can get away fairly quickly, right? We've seen that. Chicago has been up to 3rd place, been down in last place. Milwaukee's been back and forth between 1st and 2nd. And so, we're in the middle of June. We have about 6, maybe 7 weeks left before the trade deadline. Right? And, I'm interested in seeing what Nick Krall has in store for this Reds team, on what type of deals does he want to make heading into the back half of the season, especially since they're playing so well. Coming from a blog Reds Machine earlier today, Reds open trade talks with Royals immediately for Aroldis Chapman, or for two relievers. You got Aroldis Chapman And let me see. I think it's let me see what the article said. It was Ken Rosenthal, the Athletic, recently reported that the Kansas City Royals are making reliever Scott Barlow and Aroldis Chapman available, and the conversations of Cincinnati in questions of wanting to proceed with one or two, if not both players in the division. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, why not? We have to determine, first of all, I think if the way that the season was anticipated before the season began, there was going to be deals made that I think turned to heads about helping this ball club in the long run. You're thinking about players like Jose Barrero, that was instantly on my list. Nick Senzel was instantly on my list. And, even a guy like Will Myers was on my list. Will Benson was on my list. Either TJ Friedel or Jack Fraley was on my list, to be honest. Luke Molly, was on the list. There was definitely players that was on the trading block that I had at the beginning of the season. And throughout the course of the season, we would see young talent come make their way through the farm system, and we will see them, see these guys replace. Well, being in the position that we are in currently, what are the options that Nick Kroll has? You have to make the decision now as a manager, is that, hey, we have a clear shot at the NL Central. If we keep on playing, we even are only 3 games back of the third wild card spot, which currently right now, and I haven't really gotten too deep into this, but currently right now, the Dodgers and the Marlins lead 3 games above the wild card. Milwaukee holds that third position. San Francisco's a half a game back. Philadelphia's a game and a half back. San Diego is 2.5 games back. And Cincinnati's 3 games back. So what I'm trying to point out here is that there is an opportunity right now in the month of June, and do you realistically wait for, do you wait until the very last second? Possibly. But one of the conversations that we look around now is possible trades, possible deals, and what some teams are going to deal players to better their roster. They're going to get rid of the bad and pick up good players, or they're going to replace players, trade to reinvent their roster for next year, right? Because that's the whole purpose of the deadline. So it's going to be interesting to see where the Reds fall among this line. Are they going for it to win? Are they going for it because they still see the end game in 2025, 2026? Or are they going, what are they going to do? And we have to keep that an open mind. Talking about open minds here, that all-star ballot is open until June 22nd, 2023. You can vote up to 5 times every 24 hours on the MLB app, MLB.com, or your club's webpage. So click on your favorite players heading into the All-Star break. And I tell you, some big news coming already. I would like to see some Reds players make it to the All-Star game. Right? So let me ask you this. Which player do you want to see in the All-Star game? Now, before we get to that, let me kind of just share with you. Here's kind of right now who's currently leading 10 games, 10 days remain. All right. This was posted earlier today on, you can find it on any ballpark, MLB.com. You can find it on Cincinnati's webpage. But this is an accurate for, baseball standings and whatnot. Ronald Acuna Jr. and Shohei Ohtani are the two of the biggest stars at baseball today. And if phase one of All-Star games voting ended today, they would be the league starting lineup for July 11th in Seattle. All right, so for American League first baseman, you got, Vladdy Guerrero. He has about almost 600,000, votes. Behind him is the Rays' Yadi Diaz. And then there's a good gap between Anthony Rizzo, who sits in the middle, and then Nathaniel Lowe, who sits way at maybe at 200,000 votes. Second baseman, leading that by by all means, is Rangers' Marcus Semien with over 700,000 votes. Matt Chapman with the Blue Jays. It's a tight race for third because Josh Jung with the Rangers. Rafael Devers about halfway down in third base. Shortstop, you got Bo Bichetti. That's just blowing it out of the waters. Corey Seagull doesn't even have half the points that Bo has at shortstop. Your outfielders, Aaron Judge has that nice, comfortable lead, followed by Mike Trout and Yordan Alvarez with the Astros, about the same. And then, Randy with the Rays, Kevin Kiermaier with the Blue Jays kind of behind it. So outfield's looking pretty steady. Your catchers, Aldi Rutschman with the Orioles has a pretty good lead, about 100,000 more than Johan Helm with the Rangers. And that's and then your designated hitter is Shohei Ohtani, who is almost at 1 million votes already. It's unnational. And then for the National League, we see first baseman Freddie Freeman with, twice as many as Pete Alonso, who has 700, Freddie Freeman, who has 775,000 votes. Scroll down the list, we see Luis Arraez with 500,000, followed by Ozzie Albies with the Atlanta Braves. Third base, you got Nolan Arenado with 400. Austin Riley follows back. Orlando Arcia, Francisco Lindor at shortstop. The interesting list with the shortstop is that Matt McClain has 200,000 votes. And then for the outfielders, Ronald Acuna already was the first player to hit the 1 million vote mark, followed by Mookie Betts, Gurriel Jr. with the D-backs, Soto with the Padres. So in that list, the DH, Sean Murphy for them. So right now, the top 5 list, let's break it to you. Vote McClain. Vote McClain. I don't think that we will see, any other Reds. This is where voting kind of gets to me, is that I like it. All right, because the fans have the opportunity to vote their favorite players, and based off of the number of votes, that's just going to be in the starting lineup. That will reveal in 10 days. The problem is, right, for me, is that, you can see a team that probably doesn't have any all-stars, and it would be devastating. It would be a very wonderful experience to see a guy like McClain or a guy, and you're not going to get a guy like Senzel. You're not going to get a guy like Steer. Fraley and TJ Friedel's been up and down so much with injuries throughout the course of the year that you're just not going to get enough of him. And maybe you're surprised that you don't see Tyler Stevenson, doing the catching. He's not even in the list. I would like to see definitely a handful more of Cincinnati players because, as I mentioned, the Cincinnati players, it builds morale for this team. Matt McClain sits fourth among shortstops in the NL All-Star ballot. So vote, Cincinnati fans, vote for Matt McClain. I'll do it 5 times right now. In 24 hours, I'll do another 5 more. But ultimately, who would you like to see in the All-Star game this year? Realistically, if I'm looking at the All-Star game as of today, impressive people that I would like to see is Hunter Green. He just got that contract extension. He's worked very well. I like to see him in the All-Star game. I would like to see Matt McClain, who's been, lights out in his short time here. It's going to be also, this is just the phase one of the ballot. So it's going to be, I guess, interesting to see how the other phases will work and see what the Reds can get out of it. But hey, we got 10 days. So let's vote. All right. Our number 2 is coming up. And don't worry, we still got 2 hours of this program. And then our number 2 to mandatory mini camps this week. Talk to you about that. And we'll celebrate the 67th birthday of Joe Montana, as well as the Nuggets and the Heat. What does Miami have to do to win Game 5 of the NBA Finals? The future of XFL as they lost $60 million, $60,000. Excuse me. We'll talk a little bit more WWE at the bottom of hour number 2. So stay tuned. Just getting wrapped up, just getting warmed up. Hour number 2 coming up next here. You guys are listening to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
About to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be. Life with no distractions, we'll get away. This is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's go, let's be free with me. Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free. Be
Hour number 2 here on the throw-in is giving you thanks to Spreaker. You can take the throw-in on the road with you wherever you go by downloading us on all major platforms. Thanks to Spreaker from iHeartRadio. Allows us to download, view analytics, and monetize our podcast. If you guys have a podcast looking to monetize yourselves, check out Spreaker and their amazing deals and get detailed information about your podcast. Spreaker.com for more information. We'll also like to invite people out to our webpage where you could miss, if you miss any episodes, any ball games, any blogs, anything. You guys can check out our webpage at www.tncsportstalkshow.com. That is www.tncsportstalkshow.com. All right, this past weekend, the Cincinnati festivals began with the Italian festivals, June 8th through the 11th over the weekend. Enlightened Studios was down there participating, and they volunteered, giving back to Cincinnati and to show everyone what Cincinnati is all about. If you got a chance to see the team in blue, hey, they were helping you guys have a wonderful experience down there. Newport on the Levee at the Cincinnati Italian Festival this past weekend. And next time you guys will get a chance to see them will be June 23rd through the 25th at the Taco Festival. They will also be volunteering at the Celtic Festival, July 14th and 16th. If you guys are out there enjoying yourself, I'd encourage you guys to stop by one of those beverage booths that Enlightened Studios volunteers at and thank them for their time and service, as it's completely free. If you guys are wanting to volunteer and contribute, they do promote a nice incentive by giving you by allowing you to keep your tips. If you guys are interested, email enlightenedstudios.cincy@gmail.com. That is enlightenedstudios.cincy@gmail.com and sign up today. I want to take this time and just thank everybody who participated over the weekend. Was told it was a great time. Italian festivals always are, and they hope to see you guys out there at the next one. So thank you guys for everyone who volunteered and for your time and effort. Kind of weird. I don't know how Sunday went. It was kind of raining, and I was like, oh no, great. It was like it came down, winds blowing, and I gotta actually call maintenance at the house because our trees in our back, area, the branches are starting to hit our building, and I don't want it to one day bust through a window. So hopefully to call them and maybe trim some of that stuff back. That's just how nature is. Trying to always sabotage what our plans are and everything moving forward. But man, good weekend there. Didn't do much. Went out to my daughter's softball game on Saturday. She has her final game on this coming up Saturday. It's supposed to be really nice for it. Last practice, end of the season. I know we've been talking on and off, and the weeks have just flew by. I tell you that. Sometimes here, going out to amusement park. At the end of the month, my sister's coming down for a couple of weeks to be able to entertain her. She's just graduated high school from San Diego. So congratulations to her. In that she did it last Wednesday, matter of fact. All right, talking about celebrations here. Okay, we want to celebrate over the past weekend Joe Montana 67th birthday, and we got some interesting facts that corresponds with Joe Montana. And another person that I have not gotten a chance to watch growing up, played for the San Francisco 49ers. But he had a couple of interesting facts over the weekend that CBS Sports writer Brian Derardo reported yesterday at 11:43 a.m., available on CBSSports.com, about this Hall of Famer, Joe Montana. And, you think about Joe Montana. Here's a pretty interesting thing. For me, growing up, I was by default a San Diego Charger fan when the Chargers were in San Diego. When they were up and leaving and they were inconsistent, I ended up shipping sales to San Francisco. My dad's team at the time, the only team that was undefeated at the Super Bowl up until they lost to the Baltimore Ravens and then to the Kansas City Chiefs. They were 5-0, which I thought was a very incredible record. But the 49ers' success ran around maybe a small handful of players. We're talking about Joe Montana, Steve Young, Jerry Rice, but Joe Montana. And I think one of the favorite memorable stories that you hear all the time, and whenever you talk about Joe Montana, you can't help but to relay this type of story, was the Super Bowl run with, I believe it was against the Cincinnati Bengals. No, Chargers, maybe. I don't know. Remember, but they were down. They needed one last drive in the last drive of the game, and Montana looked cool. Went into the huddle, pointed up. Hey, is that John Candy? And there you go. He ran down and scored a touchdown. Calmest as the most calm person that he could ever be. No one else could probably pull that off. And he kind of set the pathway for some of the great recent quarterbacks, and Big Ben, Peyton Manning. You also see guys like Tom Brady, inspirations. So here's a couple of nice, interesting facts that Brian said on CBSSports.com about him. Coming in at number 1, a member of the Western Pennsylvania's Cradle of Quarterbacks. Western Pennsylvania has produced some of the greatest quarterbacks in league history. A list that includes Montana, Johnny Unitas, Joe Namath, Jim Kelly, and Dan Marino. A native of Monongahela, Pennsylvania. Butchering names at 9 o'clock in the afternoon, which is about 25 miles from south of Pittsburgh. Montana, a 2-year starter in high school, was tabbed as a parade All-American as a senior. Despite receiving a slew of basketball scholarships, Montana chose instead to play quarterback at Notre Dame, a member of the school's 1977 National Championship team. Montana offered a foreshadowing of what was to come in the NFL during his final college game in 1979 Cotton Bowl. Montana, who played despite suffering from hypothermia, led to the Irish in a 23 unanswered point in the fourth quarter to lead Notre Dame to a 35-34 win. Wow. And that was 40 years ago, almost 40 plus years ago. He was suffering from hypothermia before a miracle comeback. Legacy right there. Coming in at number 2, an early inspiration for Tom Brady. Tom Brady, the man who many believe has surpassed Montana as the greatest quarterback of all time, was a huge fan of Montana as a child growing up in San Mateo, California. In fact, a 4-year-old Brady was inside Candlestick Park January 10th, 1982, and Montana found Dwight Clark in the back of the end zone and gave the 49ers a 28-27 win over the Cowboys. In the NFC Championship game, the play forever remembered as the catch propelled the 49ers to the first Super Bowl win in 26-21 victory over the Bengals 2 weeks later in Detroit Silverdome. Brady said this about Montana. I was lucky to grow up in the Bay Area at the time. When looking back on his time as a fan, he said, I will always remember being at all the Super Bowl rallies, my mom taking me out of school, and banging pots and pans on the El Camino after they would win Super Bowls. Those memories never go away. So, February 5th, 2017, Brady surpassed Montana by winning his 5th Super Bowl in as the Patriots starting quarterback. Fittingly, Brady pulled off a Montana-like comeback to get the win as the New England's overcome the 28-3 deficit to defeat the Falcons in overtime, 34-28. Tom Brady, who is now the proud owner of 7 Super Bowl rings and 5 Super Bowl MVP trophies, stands beside a whole list of heroes that's available on this website. Coming in at number 3, no Super Bowl interceptions in 4 Super Bowl games and 122 passing attempts. Montana never threw an interception in the big game. In Super Bowl competition, Montana completed 68% of his passes for 1,142 yards and 11 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. While his numbers in Super Bowl 17, 27. Is it? I'm just gonna. I can't read Roman numerals. Were nothing to write home about. He threw for 157 yards, nearly half of what the counterpart Cincinnati's Ken Anderson delivered in a losing effort. Montana's last 3 Super Bowls were a thing of art. Coming in at number 4, Giants trouble central to quarterback controversy. As the 49ers quarterback, Montana won nearly 3 times as many playoff games, 14 to be exact, and as he lost 5 along with his 4-0 record in Super Bowls. Montana posts a 2-0 playoff record against Mike Ditka Bears, defeating Chicago in the 1984 and 1988 NFC title games. In his 288 yards, 3 touchdown performance against the Bears in the 88 title game, played in sub-freezing conditions inside Chicago's Soldier Field, is one of the more underrated performances of Montana's career. Coming in also 95, coming in at number 5, the John Candy story. Younger fans may not know. I hear it all the time. You watch several movies, you will hear it too. But the story, full details of Montana's infamous John Candy story during the final stages of Super Bowl 23, with 3 minutes and 4 seconds remaining, and with the 49ers backed up on their own 8-yard line and trailing the Bengals by 3 points. Montana shared an interesting observation with his teammates as they entered the huddle that was made even longer by a TV timeout. Harrison Barton, the 49ers right tackle at the time, recalled what transpired in a huddle during the NFL Films documentary about the 88 49ers. He said, and I quote, "Joe looks at me and he goes, 'Hey, H.' I go, and Barton goes, I go, 'What?' And then he goes, 'Check it out. Look down there in the other end zone. You see him? There's John Candy down there in the end zone.' And sure enough, the whole huddle turns around and looks down there, and there's John Candy eating popcorn at the other end of the stadium. We're like, yeah, that's John Candy. Look at that." And then the official blows the whistle, and the play starts. I mean, there is not enough that describes, Joe Montana. I've been a big fan of him, even though I've never seen him play. And it's the stories that you leave behind that make you so great. For example, it's the Iron Sheik, right? Who has left a huge legacy behind. Although I've never seen him compete or wrestle in person, you can't ignore the legacy that he's left about. When you 20, 30, when you're out of the ring for 20, 30 years and they're still talking about you, and the, fans still share memorable stories about you, then you've done something to leave legacies on your mark. And Joe Montana is one of those guys that left legacies. And when you could go throw out Roger Staubach, you could go throw out, anyone and everyone, Dan Marino, but for me, there is just no one like Joe Montana. And for me, Joe Montana, it's going to be one of those arguments that, just like NBA has all the time, right? NBA has these arguments all the time about who's the greatest NBA player of all the time, entire history. Is it Magic Johnson? Is it, Kobe Bryant? Is it LeBron James? And you take generation out of generation talent. You're taking decades of talent trying to pick up the number one. Well, one of the questions that we could have in the conversations later this year is, officially, is Tom Brady better than Joe Montana? Understanding the changes of the game from the 80s to the 2000s, where, maybe, less padding, more, less artificial turf. There's more hard floor, right? Concrete floors. I feel like guys back then, bigger, harder, they didn't care that referees let them play. Compared to now where they do, I think, maybe a bit too much the quarterbacks. So I feel like all that is in the conversation mix. But Joe Montana, for me, will always go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He is if you had to create a Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks, he's arguably in that conversation. And he left that legacy among everyone else. And now he gets to live and watch people live up to his legacy. Even though right now San Francisco's in a world of trouble. We'll talk about the later date, though. All right, we're going to step aside. Come on back. XFL has a concern heading into moving forward of their career status. What's the future of XFL? We'll talk to you about that. We'll also talk to you about the Denver Nuggets, Miami Heat. What does Miami need to do to win? Well, I think it's very simple, but we'll talk about it. And then we'll wrap things up with baseball. But coming up next, the Cincinnati Bengals have a mandatory minicamp this week. We'll tell you all about that. And some of the players still come with it. You guys are listening to The Throne here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Going on, everyone? Justin here from the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to you, the listeners. That's right. Without you guys, none of this is possible. I would also like to take the time and invite you out to our merchandise page, thanks to T Public. Our merchandise page is where you can find all of our brandings from the Throne, which is currently active weekly, to the TNC Sports Talk official brands, to either the prior shows that was part of the TNC Sports Talk Foundation. Within all the brandings, you can select t-shirts in both men and female sizes, apparel such as hoodies, kids onesies, kids t-shirts, phone cases, notebooks, coffee mugs. They have a vast majority. This is why I love T Public. And right now, if you spend $80 or more, you get free shipping. And so we want to invite you out to our merchandise page by heading on over to tpublic.com/user/TNC-sports-talk, or even using the QR code up in the right-hand corner. We want to thank you guys again, the listeners, for supporting us, and we hope to see you guys out wearing our merchandise. I'd like to give a big shout out to Epidemic Sound. Discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find your perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com. I'd like to also give a big shout out to Canva, the platform where we can create the commercial breaks, the overlays, and all that fun good stuff that you see displayed on our screen thanks to Canva. Create presentations, videos, flyers, and more. Check out canva.com for more information. Alrighty. Well, some interesting news coming out of UC football for the Bearcats. They just announced, UC football just landed its 10th commitment in the 2024 class from 3-star athlete Willie Goodwin out of Rayburn County, Georgia. The 6'1", 180-pound quarterback earned the ranking from 24/7 Sports upon signing with UC. The site has him ranked 65th nationally among safeties and 71st among Georgia's recruits. He is a wide receiver and cornerback, catching 20 passes and for 449 yards. That's averaging about 22.5 yards per catch. And 7 touchdowns last season, while also posting 47 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 3 pass backups on defense in 2022. He is the first of what figures in to be a few commitments from a big official visit weekend in Clifton. Goodwin is the 5th Georgia recruit to choose Cincinnati in this class. The Bearcats is now ranked 29th nationally on 24/7 Sports with 10 commits. So congratulations to Willie Goodman and to the Bearcats here. All right. We have the Bengals is holding a mandatory minicamp, something that's kind of been going around all through the NFL this past couple weeks. And we'll talk about that all coming up here and right after this quick promotional ad. Enlightened Studios continues their Cincinnati festivals. Coming up next is the Taco Festival, June 23rd to the 25th. Volunteer now and keep your tips. Thanks to Enlightened Studios, can work in beverage concession stands, doing both alcohol and non-alcohol. Kids of all ages and adults can volunteer. You guys can email enlightenedstudios.cincy@gmail.com for more of the information. Alrighty, Bengals are holding mandatory mini camps Tuesday through Thursday this week. So we kind of take a first look into the Cincinnati Bengals and what they have to offer. And a couple of things we know. There has obviously been some changes. I looked into the offensive personnel when it comes down to quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, kind of our main focus points. And it kind of thrives me to kind of say, all right, we definitely see some new names, but we're also going to see, I kind of want to now transpire into kind of breaking down the entire team and just really going into depth into town. I mean, you look at the wide receivers, we have Tyler Boyd. I'm thinking Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase is your top three guys. And then you have a whole bunch of other guys that's down there that's going to be able to make a name for themselves. What's great about this is that you have young talent that are looking to make a name for themselves that Joe Burrow can make a name out of. And they're going to get opportunities because now Jamar Chase is a couple years, veteran. Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. Teams know what this receiving class is, and so they know how they're going to probably balance a little bit more out to these top guys. Which what I've always said, it gives these fourth and fifth receivers opportunities to come in and say, all right, let's go ahead and get that opportunity, find a slot, step up to the game. So when we look at like tight ends, it's going to be a new image, right? No Hayden Hurst. It's going to be Drew Sample, Irv Smith Jr. I mean, and that's okay. There's room for growth. And what I like about this Bengals team, especially offensively, they're growing and they continue to grow and they have promising talent to grow. One of my biggest concerns is that, was the obviously running back position. All right. There's been a couple running backs that's been nominated, on the free agent market. Dalvin Cook being the latest one over the weekend. We've also seen Ezekiel Elliott testing free agent market. And running back position has been the number one issue in the NFL because it doesn't pay as much, right? And you could go younger. And there's been a lot of stuff that's been going on with Joe Mixon throughout earlier this year that questioned his status of how he would be if he would still be on the team. And there was rumors to report that he would go on and find himself, the Bengals may consider releasing him and coming up with a negotiation contract. All right, let me buy you out and you become a free agent. And it is the type of scenario where you don't want this negativity to come through and to affect your ball club. You don't want halfway through the season and he gets taken to trial or something like that. And, he's restricted from playing. He didn't have a great year last year. And, I don't know if he's definitely a player that I wouldn't sign in all honesty. And I'm not saying I don't like Joe Mixon, but I feel like there's just too much baggage. There's too much cleavage on what he has to bring to the table for Bengals success. And this is going to be a conversation for a later date, but there are concerns, right? There is a window for success for the Bengals, right? And they need to find a way to get over that hump. And is it with Joe Mixon? Is it without Joe Mixon? So, like I said, that's a question. Those are conversations as we get closer to the season that we will talk about. Maybe later on this week if there's not enough stories. I heard about this, picking up Trevor Siemian as a backup quarterback with that new quarterback role, allowing to have that third quarterback enlisted as a quote unquote emergency quarterback that doesn't take up your 53-man slot. Trevor Siemian, I think, is a great quarterback. What this does to me for Joe Burrow, in case, God forbid, he gets hurt, I still feel a bit relieved that we have a quarterback, not a great quarterback, but a good QB that can hold himself with the players that are here that has been established. So we're going to get a chance to look at it. I mean, you drive by. I mean, I don't drive to Cincinnati every day like I used to couple years ago, and I kind of do miss the drive. But you got to see them practice outside. You got to see, you see that dome heading over the Ben Sprints bridge, whatever you call it. And it gives me that, I guess, you get excited, right? You get excited when you're crossing that bridge because you see Paycor Stadium. You see how they are putting up the signs, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, all right, are they renovating it? Whatever the case may be. Then you see the practice, outside, the practice facility outside next door. And then you go on and, you drive past, you're headed to Columbus, and then you get to see the Great American Ballpark. And I'm like, okay, well, both teams are now fun and exciting to talk about them. I'm like, let's go, because like I said, win or lose, you got to find a way to get yourself to be able to come to the games and get yourself excited to watch something. But XFL future may be in jeopardy. How XFL advocates, long game after, reported they lost $60 million. Here's how they could survive over the course of the next couple of years. A couple of decisions could be on the table. I don't know if this is a long-term thing. Remember, XFL was created by WWE's chairman, Vince McMahon, earlier 20 years ago. It didn't work as well. Recently, he brought it up, brought it back again, thinking it was going to work. Debuted pandemic year, didn't really, had to shut it down because of the pandemic. Then the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnsons end up purchasing XFL, and they actually had their first season this year. This first year, and it was, I think it was a good moment, but they took a pretty big hit for having losing $60 million, and now there are sources of what the future may hold for XFL. I'm going to tell you guys this in all honesty. XFL for me is not a how do I want to put it? XFL is just like USFL. There's nothing against it. I just don't dedicate myself to those leagues. You're not gonna, unless, let me put it this way. There's so much sports going on among, there's some great things I saw from the XFL. There's some, some players we haven't seen in a while. There's some rules that I think that NFL could inherit. Same thing that goes with the USFL. But the problem is that we are so invasive of saying football season is from August or September through January. And then you have basketball afterwards, and no one's going to compare yourself to March Madness. That's why WWE has issues with WrestleMania, because you have the semifinals on that weekend. Then you have baseball for the 30 cities that have baseball teams. So there's a good chunk. Here's a prime example. For basketball, they have a summer league. Well, guess what? That summer league doesn't have the attendance or the audience that you'd expect from the regular NBA season, because people transition into other sports, or to the summertime. Same thing goes with the XFL and USFL, right? It's football. It's great stuff. They're playing it. It's still very brand new to the conversations. And so, when football is over with, people take a break from the NFL, from football overall. Did it mean that I did not pay attention to a single game of XFL and USFL this season? No, I've tuned into a bit, but my attention, my enthusiasm that goes towards one of these sports are more slim. One, because they're not considered a pro level sport. Right? They're not as considered pro like baseball or the NFL or NBA or NHL. So what does that mean for XFL in the future for XFL? Well, you got two options. you can merge to USFL. Let me start you off there. There can be a conversation that can merge those two companies together, because I feel like it's just going to lose money for whoever owns XFL down the road. I just don't feel the continuous is the reason why I failed the first time, and the USFL, they didn't have a promising year last year, and the only reason why they're probably doing better this year than last year is because they already had a year under the belt. Overall, XFL could look into merging with USFL, or what I could see is XFL tying in with NFL and seeing what they can relate to. See, there is a minor league, maybe, there's practice squad games that we can implement throughout the off season. It's not a huge deal. It's not a huge topic. It's not a huge circumstance, but it's still something that's out there on the table. To be honest, and I apologize, as much as I want to see it succeed, I really, you'd be lucky to get. I'd be very surprised to see them next year, and if not, 2 maybe 3 years down the road. Game 5 of Denver and Miami is underway. And, I remember talking about this for game 4 and for game 3. Miami's down 1-3, and they may have, if I'm not mistaken, they may have Tyler Hero back in tonight's ball game. And I haven't checked the score yet. I kind of want to just stay away from that until afterwards. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But Miami found a clever way to pick up a victory in this series that worked very well. And that was playing the 2 out of 3 odds, right? We talked about this. I want to say we talked about it. But there is a scenario when it comes down to playing basketball, is that you have, the points, the rebounds, and the assist. The rebounds you got no control over. All right, that's just something that if you understand that and you accept that, you could get that across that off your list, which means now it's either down to the assist or it's down to the points. Well, if you can allow as many, you have to be able to control one of them. And what Miami discovered was that if we allowed, Jokic to score, because he put up 40 points in a losing game for Denver, if you're allowed Jokic to score all you want, but you limit the assist, then you're controlling the ball game. You keep the ball on your court. You keep it in your favor. 2, you're given the opportunity time every possession to get the ball back. And 3, you're eliminating everyone else on the court to make a play. So you don't have 2 or 3 teammates putting up 25, 30 points a game. That's for reasonings of why you would win. So, and if you can successfully have 2 of those 3 categories, which one is, I say rebounds are more neutral, then you got to fight for one or the other. And Denver is up 3-1 against Miami. And let me say this before we cut to break, and we got to cut to break, our last break of the program. Miami has fought their way to game 7, to the final game of each round. If they were to go give up this game and lose, you can't hold your head down. All right? You took on Boston, you took on Milwaukee. I mean, there's just no, you didn't call it quits. And, there is that self-respect of saying, all right, we're tired, we're exhausted. I apologize, but there's nothing to be, disappointed for. But we'll see. We'll talk about the NBA Game 5, which is going on. It's going on right now. Let's take our last break of the evening, wrap up a 2-hour program back with wrestling. It's interesting here. WWE TV deals may be coming to an end. Where could we possibly be watching Raw or SmackDown? Let's talk a little bit about that. And Monday Night Raw coming up here on the Throw-In, available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Be sure to scan our QR code and check us out on our merchandise. Get your t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, hats, phone cases, laptop cases, and much more. Thanks to TeePublic, teepublic.com for TNC Sports Talk memorabilia. Thank you guys for tuning in to our program this afternoon. We'll be back again tomorrow. 2-hour program. What time, I don't know. We will be getting back tomorrow. I will promise you that. Talk about the Reds and Royals tonight. Monday Night Raw, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then we'll talk about some other great stories, news, and highlights. Throw-In continues tomorrow. So be sure to have those notifications on so you don't miss a single episode. All right, breaking news coming out of the WWE here. We're actually per reports, excuse me. This was actually sources coming from Fightful and New York Post. Was that the WWE exclusive media rights negotiation window with NBC Universal and Fox have reportedly expired with no deal agreed upon, meaning WWE is now free to explore deals with other parties. There has been reportedly been early interest expressing by Amazon and Disney, with Disney apparently intending to place WWE programmings on their FX network. Putting WWE on ESPN was also an option, but with Disney's exploring spinning off all ESPN content into its own streaming platform, WWE on FX seems the most likely feature. WWE's currently network deals expire on October 2024, so there is still plenty of time for negotiation. So, the negotiations of and this let's paint you the time frame. So right now, there has been no agreement between WWE and NBC Universal and Fox. For whatever reason. That could be the simple reasons of seeing, Vince McMahon signing and selling the company to Endeavors, because that's going to be its own, you create when you start having other heads and other, people in the, in the conference having abilities to make changes and deals for long-term basis. I mean, that happens. The other thing that comes across is that, let's remember, this is a timeline that won't expire for about a year and a half. Okay. So October 2024 is a year and a half. We still have some time away. But that time is still not, that time will go by pretty quickly. Okay. Tomorrow we will forget all about this conversation. And we won't talk about it until next, we find WWE changing shows and new channels. Now, I've been a fan of WWE cutting from 3 hours down to 2 hours. So, especially when it comes down to Monday Night Raw, and I will like to see that happen. There's just a lot of content that drags out on Raw for me, which makes it difficult to, in all honesty, makes it difficult to watch and consume. It's Monday night out here on the East Coast, starts at 8, doesn't get done till 11. People got to get up in the morning. I mean, it's just a lot of content. So what does this mean, right? Well, we hear we read the article, and we read that Amazon, Disney's in conversations, and I'm sure that there's other more that will like to get their hands on putting WWE product on TV, especially now knowing that Endeavors is part of WWE. You get that publicity. It kind of sucks because I am used to WWE being on Fox. I like how Michael Cole and Fox works with SmackDown really well. For me, I feel like they're a perfect pair. WWE has always been known to be on USA Network, and the thought of WWE moving to different channels that don't support either USA Network or Fox down the road, I think it's tough because streaming services don't have access to a lot of these channels anymore. What you want to watch. I mean, we could watch AEW because it's on TNT, and yeah, TNT is one of those channels that everyone kind of gets. But when you want to look at, shows like Ring of Honor, you want to look at Impact Wrestling, you don't get a chance to watch those because they're not on, on the mainstream channels. I remember when Raw used to be on Spike TV. So to think about an idea or an option, Disney doing something with it, I think they could keep they have the FX network. They also have they also have the what's it called? They also have the ESPN, which I think works, but there's conferences earlier this year kind of separated that idea. nothing to hit the panic button yet, but don't be surprised. These are changes that the WWE will be going through over the next year, 2, 3, 5 years because of the new ownership, the new final decisions. Yeah, they put Vince McMahon at the top of the reign. I promise you that, if someone has the ability to overpower Vince if they really, really need to. So nothing to hit the panic button around. Raw is currently going on tonight. We'll talk all about that tomorrow, but a couple things happening on Raw tonight as we see the team of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn take on Gunther and Ludwig in the main event tonight on Raw. A nice, interesting battle, between Sami, Kevin, Riddle against Imperium. Kind of the first true challenge. One thing that I think we feared of the most. It's Imperium has such a great position. And I feel like when you throw Imperium up among other talent, it's hard to really see the image of, Ludwig and Gunther, especially last couple of weeks, they've kind of been on that downhill. I kind of really wanted, Imperium to come up to the main Raw, to Raw and dominate Raw, maybe getting into a feud with, to maybe turn baby faces and get into a feud with maybe the Judgment Day. And hopefully at some point we do see that. But, first nice little test for that. And then also you see Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, you will see a gauntlet match this Friday night to determine the number one contenders for those Universal Tag Team titles. So far we've seen all titles have been, uniquely rearranged and, distorted. And when will we see these tag team titles? And that's another big question down the road. I don't know. Do you separate these titles and recreate them? Do you, what do you do with them? So that's going to be a nice story to follow. Cody Rhodes taking on The Miz tonight. Matt Riddle taking on Damian Priest as well. We're on the road to Money in the Bank. Damian Priest actually defeated Matt Riddle. Well, spoiler alert if you guys did not know. He will be joining Ricochet, Shinsuke Nakamura, LA Knight, Santos Escobar, and Pete Butch in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Becky Lynch, Zoe Starks, Zelina Vega, Io Sky, Bailey all going to the Money in the Bank, which is July 1st in London. So great stuff going out for the WWE. Like I said, at the beginning of the program, we celebrated the life of the Iron Sheik who passed away. Last week here at the age of, is it 81? 1942 to 2023. So we remember the life of the Iron Sheik, which will be the dedication to him on tonight's program. But hey, Bloodline is really pointing up. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, do you point fingers at Paul Heyman? And I feel like Paul Heyman, he's been sneaky and he's been different. He's really taken charge. He's really relaying messages. He has, he's keeping Solo, in control of things. At the same time, a huge encounter, brothers trying to help each other out with, Solo trying to keep it one-on-one, saying he has to do it for himself. But what really got to me on Friday was when Paul told Jay that he was going to be the next tribal chief. That Roman Reigns is leading him up to it. And I'm like, Paul, especially in front of everyone else, you are not saying that unless you're really trying to get under someone's skin. And I bet you are. So it makes the storyline is interesting. I like where the storyline is going, especially on the downhill battle. You don't want to just disclose and be, all right, we're done with it after SummerSlam. Let's egg it on. And like I mentioned, the whole bloodline is not about Roman Reigns himself. Okay. It's not about just Roman Reigns. It's about the entire family. It's about the Usos. It's about Solo Sikoa. It's about anyone else who is in line to be coming up to be a part of the family down the road. That's what it's about. And if you are, you got to tell the story and have everyone included, and this downhill is a part of everyone. And you saw a little bit at Night of Champions. Roman's is getting a bit lost as well, right? So it's a little bit of everything, but it's good content. So we'll see what more is to come. Hey, we will be back tomorrow, 2-hour program on the Throne, talking to you guys about Raw, talking to you guys about everything that's been going on. NBA Finals, Game 5, so much more. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Also have those notifications on. Don't miss a single episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until tomorrow, you guys take care. Have a great rest of your night.